Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bar. I'm your host, Timmy Tayo. And of course, Man United go into the international break on the back of really an undefeated run in the last few games. We talked about, of course, we lost some penalties to Fulham and then positive results from then on against Arsenal and then the two legs against Sociedad in the UEFA Europa League. And then, of course, getting 3 points away at Leicester, the King Power Stadium, defeating Leicester 3-0. And I think normally when a team is building the kind of momentum that United are with the results that I've just mentioned, typically the international break would be a disruption in that form, in that trajectory. But I think in this case, it's a positive thing. When you look at the number of injuries that have plagued the squad, of course, most recently, the young Aiden Heaven, who looked to have a really gruesome ankle injury that the TV wouldn't even show the replays. Of course, we're hoping that it's positive news. We got reports that he was able to walk on his own, albeit with a protective boot, but he was able to walk on his own with the boot out of the stadium, and I think that's good news. But when you look at the injuries, like I've said, and you look at the number of players that have had to play 2-3 games in a week, I think this break is much needed. When you have that amount of minutes on these players' legs from a Thursday to Sunday and a Thursday again, it's only a matter of time before more injuries pile on. And so I think this break comes at a good time. Yes, it does halt the progress that the team has been making in the performances and the results, but it's an opportunity for some players to get much needed rest. For example, Joshua Zirkzee, who fortunately has not been called up to the Netherlands squad. And I mean, he's been playing his heart out, running himself into the ground. And I think he's going to get a much needed break, a chance to rest, to reboot, to recharge, to refresh, to be able to give his all for the rest of the season. And then also an opportunity for injured players to build up their rehab and build up their fitness and come back in the squad for the run-in, right? Players like Ahmad, who we've heard reports is going to be back in the beginning of April. Players like Mason Mount, who made the bench against Leicester City. Players like Kobe Mainoo, who we're hearing is also going to be back after the international break. And so look at things from that vantage point. It's an opportunity to bolster the squad for Amorim to get more of his quality players back for a crucial point in the season. Of course, it's all to play for in the Europa League in the quarterfinals against Olympique Lyon. And it's going to be great to have options with the players that I mentioned that are going to be back in the squad after the international break. And so I think it's a positive thing, this break, and a chance, like I said, just to get some players back, to be able to have some rotation with Thursday and Sunday and Thursday and Sunday games, and just more options for Amorim to choose from. Off the field, obviously a lot has transpired over the last few weeks with Jim Ratcliffe, Sir Jim, and the announcements of the stadium, ticket prices going up again. Of course, Sir Jim gave an interview to Gary Neville. We've heard about more redundancies, more personnel losing their jobs. And then with the announcement of the stadium, a lot of mixed messages, a lot of mixed emotion when you think about the number of people, like I said, that have lost their jobs, but then the excitement of a 100,000-seater stadium, a state-of-the-art facility, which will certainly bring, like I said, a lot of excitement to the team and to Greater Manchester at large. I think Sir Jim has gotten a lot of stick for the way that he's handled things since his ownership, and rightly so. We've talked about it on this show as well, whether it's with Eric Ten Hag, which he admitted himself they made the wrong decision with that, or Dan Ashworth. We talked about that as well, and the millions of pounds that they've wasted with those two horrible decisions. But I will give credit to Sir Jim in that despite these mistakes that he's made, he hasn't shied away from coming in front of a camera and addressing the fans. I think when you look at the Glazers and their ownership over the last 2 decades, I don't think we've ever seen an interview from any of the Glazers. Not one member of the Glazer family has sat down to address the United fan base. At least not that I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I can't recall any single interview that the Glazers have had addressing any of their decisions over the past 20 odd years. So for Sir Jim to come out and face the music, I think he deserves credit for that. Ultimately, his success is going to be determined by the results on the pitch and how the team fares over the next few years under his tutelage. And it was great to hear him say that if the team does not do well, he will step down. The jury is definitely still out on his ownership, a lot of bad decisions. But also, I think when you look at the transfer window, despite what the media would have you believe, I think all the players that they brought in from this past 2 windows that they've been in charge have been reasonably positive. I mean, you look at Joshua Zirkzee, he's had a really good season despite the slow start. You look at Matthias de Ligt, he's grown from strength to strength. We've talked about his progression, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet in that squad. You look at Mazraoui, again, one of the better performers this season without a shadow of a doubt. You look at, who else? Of course, Patrick Dorgu, he's only been here, a few weeks now, but the signs there are very, very positive. He's made a strong start to his career. Of course, Aiden Heaven, we've talked about him just on the last episode and the strong start that he's made to his career. Of course, Manuel Owate, right? I mean, just a brick wall in that midfield and what he brings to the table. And so when you look at the transfer window and the players that they brought in, I think that only bodes well for what we can expect in the future. Every single player that they've brought in thus far has had a positive impact on the squad. None have been, of course, when you think of transfers in the Glazers' reign, there's just too many awful transfers that we can point out, right? Whether it's Sanchez from Arsenal, too many to go down the list. I wouldn't even venture to go that route. But I think ultimately, with the list of players that they brought in, shows that there's promise there. And I'm excited for this summer window under Amorim. And if they can replicate what they did last summer and bring in players that can suit this system, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism under Sir Jim, at least in the recruitment department. And he will be judged by the success on the pitch. And like I said, the jury is still out on that, but the signs are certainly very positive. So I think there's a certain level of expectation and excitement just based on what we've seen from the summer and the winter window with the influence that the players that they brought in have had on this squad. Looking at the Premier League outside of Man United, of course, Newcastle got their first trophy in 70 years on the back of a great performance beating Liverpool at Wembley. Alexander Isak carrying the team as he's done since he came for Real Sociedad. It's going to be tough for them to keep Isak this summer. I think all the big boys are going to be calling for him, whether it's Barcelona with Lewandowski getting to the end of his career and them needing a striker to replace him, or Bayern Munich, or Bayern München, I should say, with Harry Kane. Also, we're hearing reports that he's going to be available to leave, and they're going to want to replace him. Chelsea need a striker as well. Of course, Arsenal are in desperate need of a striker. It's going to be interesting to see how Newcastle handle that. Of course, if they can't offer him Champions League football next season, I think we might be seeing another £100 million player this transfer window with what he's done for that club. So credit and congratulations to Newcastle for breaking that trophy drought and getting their first trophy. Of course, for Liverpool, I can't say that I'm sad to see them lose a final here. Of course, we know that they're the champions elect in the Premier League, which will put them at 21 trophies in English top flight football, matching Man United. And so hate to see that, but I think they've had a phenomenal season despite this loss to Newcastle, despite the loss to PSG in the Champions League. It's incredible what they've done in the Premier League. I think they've only lost one game, with Mo Salah goal contribution topping the charts for assists and goals. So got to give them their credit where it's due, and they'll be lifting the Premier League trophy here at the end of middle of May when the season comes to a halt. But yeah, that's really it for me today. Thank you guys for watching and tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel. Certainly means a lot. And we'll catch you again on the next one. Cheers.